Hi, my name is Bob Danzilo, and I've been a professional mariner since 1986, so I've been on the water for most of my professional life. I've met a lot of boatmen, and some guys are consummate sailors, and some guys just get by with it and love it and not great at it, but they just won't quit. It's a kind of a, I don't know, kind of a mystical, let's just say, an association with the sea that takes on a life of its own and kind of warms the heart. So I found a wonderful a story by E.B. White, who in 1963 wrote this, and he's been a sailor most of his life, but he decided to kind of jot down a few words and describe his sailing experiences. So I'd just like to share this with you. It's called The Sea and the Wind That Blows by E.B. White. Waking or sleeping, I dream of boats, usually of rather small boats under a slight press of sail. When I think how great a part of my life has been spent dreaming the hours away and how much of this total dream life has concerned small craft, I wonder about the state of my health, for I am told that it's not a good sign to be always voyaging into unreality driven by imaginary breezes. I have noticed that most men, when they enter a barber shop and must wait their turn, drop into a chair and pick up a magazine. I simply sit down and pick up a thread of my sea wandering, which began more than 50 years ago and has not quite ended. There is hardly a waiting room in the East that has not served as my cockpit, whether I was waiting to board a train or to see a dentist. And I'm usually still trimming sheets when the train starts or the drill begins to whine. If a man must be obsessed by something, I suppose a boat is as good as anything, perhaps a bit better than most. A small sailing craft is not only beautiful, it is seductive and full of strange promise and the hint of trouble. If it happens to be an auxiliary cruising boat, it is without question the most compact and ingenious arrangement for living ever devised by the restless mind of man. A home that is stable without being stationary, shaped less like a box than like a fish or a bird or a girl, and in which the homeowner can remove his daily affairs as far from shore as he has the nerve to take them, close-hauled or running free, parlor, bedroom, and bath, suspended and alive. Men who ache all over for tidiness and compactness in their lives often find relief for their pain in the cabin of a 30-foot sailboat at anchor in a sheltered cove. Here, the sprawling panoply of the home is compressed in orderly miniature and liquid delirium, suspended between the bottom of the sea and the top of the sky, ready to move on in the morning by the miracle of canvas and the wishcraft of rope. It is a small wonder that men hold boats in the secret place of their mind, almost from the cradle to the grave. Along with my dream of boats has gone the ownership of boats, a long succession of them upon the surface of the sea, many of them makeshift and cranky. Since childhood, I have managed to have some sort of sailing craft and to raise a sail in fear. Now in my 60s, I still own a boat, still raise my sail in fear in answer to the summons of the unforgiving sea. Why does the sea attract me in the way it does? Whence comes this compulsion to hoist the sail, or in a dream? My first encounter with the sea was a case of hate at first sight. I was taken at the age of 4 to a bathing beach in New Rochelle, New York. Everything about the experience frightened and repelled me. The taste of salt in my mouth, the foul chill of the wooden bathhouse and littered sand, and the stench of the tide flats. I came away hating and fearing the sea. Later I found that what I had feared and hated, I now feared and loved. I returned to the sea of necessity because it would support a boat, and although I knew little of boats, I could not get them out of my thoughts. I became a pelagic boy. The sea became my unspoken challenge, the wind, the tide, the fog, the ledge, the bell, the gull that cried help, and my never-ending threat and bluff of weather. Once having permitted the wind to enter the belly of my sail, I was not able to quit the helm. It was as though I had seized hold of a high-tension wire and could not let go. I liked to sail alone. The sea was the same as a girl to me. I did not want anyone else along. Lacking instruction, I invented ways of getting things done and usually ended up by doing them in a rather queer fashion and did not learn to sail properly and still cannot sail well, although I've been at it all my life. I was 20 before I discovered that charts existed. All of my navigation up to that time was done with the wariness and ignorance of the early explorers. I was 30 before I learned to hang a coiled halyard on its cleat as it should be done. Until then, I simply coiled it down on deck and dumped the coil. I was always in trouble and always returned seeking more trouble. Sailing became a compulsion. There lay the boat swinging to her mooring. There blew the wind. I had no choice but to go. My earliest boats were so small that when the wind failed or when I failed, I could switch to manual control. I could paddle or row home. But then I graduated to boats that only the wind was strong enough to move. When I first dropped off my mooring in such a boat, I was an hour getting up the nerve to cast off the pennant. Even now, with 1,000 little voyages notched in my belt, I still feel a memorable chill on casting off as the gulls jeer and the empty mainsail claps. Of late years, I've noticed that my sailing has increasingly become a compulsive activity rather than a source of pleasure. There lies the boat, there blows the morning breeze. It is a point of honor now to go. I am like an alcoholic who cannot put his bottle out of his life. With me, I cannot not sail. Yet I know well enough that I have lost touch with the wind, and in fact do not like the wind anymore. It jiggles me up, the wind does. And what I really love are windless days when all is peace. There is a great question in my mind whether a man who is against wind should longer try to sail a boat. But this is an intellectual response. The old yearning is still in me, belonging to the past and to youth. And so I am torn between past and present, a common disease of later life. When does man quit the sea? How dizzy, how bumbling must he be? Does he quit while he's ahead, or wait till he makes some major mistake like falling overboard or being flattened by an accidental jibe? This past winter I spent hours arguing the question with myself, finally deciding that I had come to the end of the road. I wrote a note to the boatyard, putting my boat up for sale. I said I was coming off the water. But as I typed the sentence, I doubted that I meant a word of it. If no buyer turns up, I know what will happen. I will instruct the yard to put her in again, just till somebody else comes along. And then there will be the old uneasiness, the old uncertainty, as the mild southeast breeze ruffles the cove, a gentle, steady morning breeze, bringing the taint of the distant wet world, the smell that takes a man back to the very beginning of time, linking him to all that has gone before. There will lie the sloop. There will blow the wind. Once more I will get underway. And as I reach across to the black can off the point, dodging the trap buoys and toggles, the shags gathered on the ledge will note my passage. There goes the old boy again. And they will say, one more rounding of his little horn, one more conquest of his roaring 40s. And with the tiller in my hand, I feel again the wind imparting life to a boat, will smell again the old menace, the one that imparts life to me, the cruel beauty of the salt world, the barnacle's tiny knives, the sharp spine of the urchin, the stinger of the sun jelly, the claw of the crab.